So let's say Matthew Stafford wins the MVP, wins another Super Bowl, and is Super Bowl MVP. Where would that put Matthew Stafford on the all-time list? Because I don't think anybody has had him in their even top 15, 20 quarterbacks all time. But now all of a sudden, with the Rams for a few years, 2 Super Bowls, an MVP, Super Bowl MVPs, all of a sudden, and he continues to rack up stats, because the stats are obviously a big part of the puzzle. Does that put Stafford in the top 10 quarterbacks all time? 2 rings, an MVP? Does it put him ahead of a guy like a Brett Favre, or at least a Dan Marino who doesn't have a ring? I don't know. There's an argument to be had there. It's very interesting because Matthew Stafford was in Detroit for so long, just not getting it done. He gets with a good offensive guru coach in Sean McVay, and all of a sudden, he looks like he could be a true Hall of Fame level guy, because at the end of his career, again, if they win the Super Bowl this year and if he wins MVP, those are going to be 2 massive notches on his belt and tallies in his side of the column to put him in the Hall of Fame and to look at him as a top 15 quarterback of all time. The upper echelon is, of course, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning. Those are your 4 best quarterbacks of all time right there. Then there's a big step down, and there's a lot of good arguments to be made for other guys like a Terry Bradshaw or a Troy Aikman or a John Elway or a Drew Brees, players like that. And I think Stafford would be kind of in the level just below those guys. So there might be the upper 4, then maybe there's 10 more. I think Stafford's right in the mix for that 15th spot. If he can win another ring this year and an MVP, I think you undeniably put him in the top 20 all time, possibly even higher. Yeah, I mean, Stafford right now is 8th all-time in yards passing. He's 7th all-time in passes completed, and he's 9th all-time in touchdown passes. I'm sorry, if you add another Super Bowl ring and an MVP to this already massive resume as far as individual statistics go, giving him 2 rings and an MVP, is he top 10 all time? I think there's a very valid argument for that. Let's look at this list. This is the all-time leaders in passer rating, and let's just say who's ahead of Matthew Stafford all time right now. If they were to end their careers today, or if their career's already over, and if Stafford ended his career after this season with an MVP and with the Super Bowl, another Super Bowl win, where would he be all time compared to these guys? Aaron Rodgers, he'd still be behind him. Lamar Jackson, I think if they both retired today or at the end of the season, and you give Stafford an MVP and another Super Bowl, I think I'd put Stafford ahead of Lamar. Patrick Mahomes is ahead. Burrow, Stafford would be ahead of him. Russell Wilson, Stafford would be ahead of him. Deshaun Watson, of course, Stafford would be ahead of him. Drew Brees, I think Drew Brees would still have a slight advantage over Stafford. Dak Prescott, for sure, Stafford ahead of him. Garoppolo, lame. Tom Brady, of course, ahead of him. Tony Romo, Stafford would be ahead of him. Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, he'd be ahead of all those guys. Steve Young, you start having an argument right there at the Steve Young mark. Who's better all time, Steve Young or Matthew Stafford? Peyton Manning would be ahead of him. Tua, that's laughable. Justin Herbert, Phillip Rivers, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Kurt Warner. He'd be ahead of all these guys. He's down there ironically tied with Joe Montana for passer rating. Again, this is just passer rating. There's a ton of different stats. I personally like QBR the best. It's a fairly newer one. I think it tells a better story for the full ability of a quarterback. Time, down, distance, situation. I think it better evaluates all of that than passer rating does. But for the sake of just looking at passer rating and going through, I think you have a very solid argument for Matthew Stafford being a top 10 quarterback all time. If he wins another Super Bowl this year and gets an MVP, very good argument he's top 10 all time.